Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the bizarre, spectacular, and frankly, incredibly pungent world of a plant that completely shatters our idea of what a typical flower should be. It's a true rainforest titan, and it's been baffling botanists and captivating crowds ever since the Victorian era. So picture this. You're standing next to a magnificent, towering plant. You lean in, expecting the sweet, delicate scent of a rose or a lily, right? Well, instead, you're hit by a wave of odor that is genuinely stomach-churning. The U.S. Botanic Garden perfectly describes it as a putrid combination of garlic, fish, diapers, and rotting meat. Seriously, it's a scent so incredibly foul that it earned this plant its infamous nickname, the corpse flower. Which, of course, brings us to the ultimate question. Why on earth would a flower evolve to smell like a decaying corpse? Over the course of this explainer, we're going to unpack the mystery behind this botanical oddity. We'll explore its massive size, its gruesome chemistry, and the really high-stakes race to save it from extinction. Section 1. Meet the botanical giant. Before we really get into that unbelievable smell, we kind of have to understand the sheer scale of this plant. It was discovered back in 1878 in the dense rainforest of Sumatra, Indonesia, by an Italian botanist named Odardo Beccari. Its scientific name is Amorphophallus titanum, and the ancient Greek translation perfectly and quite literally captures its gigantic, unmistakable, and honestly somewhat scandalous shape. It translates to shapeless giant phallus. When Beccari first reported his findings, European botanists actually reacted with total disbelief. They thought a plant this absurd just had to be a hoax. So where does all that giant growth start? Well, this plant doesn't grow from a normal root system. Instead, it grows from a massive underground storage organ called a tuber, or a corm. And this thing is an absolute monster. A mature corm can weigh an astonishing 160 pounds. Just imagine a potato that weighs as much as a fully grown adult human. That right there is the energy powerhouse of the corpse flower. And out of that massive 160-pound corm sprouts an enormous structure that can tower up to 12 feet tall in the wild. That is literally taller than a single-story building. The central spike, which is known as the spadix, shoots straight up, and it's surrounded by this frilly dark maroon skirt called the spathe. But I do need to clarify a really common myth here. While the Titan Arum is immense, it's actually not a single flower. It actually holds the title for the largest unbranched inflorescence in the world. An inflorescence is basically a cluster of hundreds of tiny male and female flowers hidden deep down at the base of that giant central stalk. If you're looking for the world's largest single flower, that title belongs to another Indonesian giant, the Rafflesia arnoldi. You know, it's amazing how many tall tales surround this plant. Just to set the record straight on a few historical rumors that popped up during the Victorian era, it definitely doesn't eat its growers, despite looking pretty menacing. And no, just because it's massive doesn't mean elephants help it pollinate. So how exactly does it pollinate? Section 2, Anatomy of a Stench. If elephants aren't doing the job, who is? And how does the plant attract them in the middle of a dense, dark rainforest? Well, the answer lies in a rare botanical process called thermogenesis. When the flower is getting ready to open, that giant central stalk, the spadix, actually heats up. It gets up to 20 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the surrounding air. According to RNA sequencing done by researchers at Dartmouth, the plant uses enzymes to block the storage of chemical energy and actually reroutes it as raw heat. That's a trick you usually only see in warm-blooded animals. And this heat serves a very, very specific purpose. It basically acts as a chimney to vaporize a gruesome chemical cocktail. Using mass spectrometer, scientists have pinned down the exact compounds the plant produces. It releases putrescine and cadaverine, which are the exact same proteins that break down in rotting dead flesh. It even releases dimethyl disulfide, a sulfur compound that's been identified as the main odor of open cancer wounds. The plant is literally chemically synthesizing the smell of death. So here's the crucial takeaway. The stench is an incredibly sophisticated evolutionary trick. In the wild, this perfectly engineered foul smell acts as a massive beacon. It rolls out in waves, tricking carrion-eating insects, like flesh flies and carrion beetles, into flying miles through the jungle. They think they've hit the jackpot and found a dead animal to lay their eggs on. When they land, they get totally covered in pollen, doing the critical work of pollinating the plant. Section 3. A bizarre life cycle. Now, as you can probably guess, creating a 12-foot-tall, 20-degree heated, rotting beacon takes an absolutely unimaginable toll on the plant's energy reserves. To actually pull this off, the corpse flower lives in a really strict, alternating cycle. It spends most of its life not as a flower at all, but as a leaf. Just a single, giant, tree-sized leaf that can reach 20 feet tall and 15 feet wide. This leaf acts like a giant solar panel, soaking up the sun for 12 to 18 months, just pumping all that energy down into the underground corm. Then the leaf dies, the plant rests, and it repeats this process for 4 to 7 years. All of that just to stockpile enough energy for one single bloom. And after years and years of gathering energy in the dark, the actual bloom is incredibly fleeting. Once that massive frilly spathe finally unfurls and unleashes its heat and stench, the show is basically almost over. The bloom only lasts for 24 to 48 hours before its energy is entirely spent. After that, the whole majestic structure just collapses into a heap on the ground.
Section 4. The pollination problem and saving the corpse flower. That incredibly tight blooming window presents a massive, massive crisis for the survival of the entire species. See, the Titan arum rarely self-pollinates. Why? Because its female flowers become receptive on day 1, but its male flowers don't release pollen until day 2. Nature's way of preventing inbreeding, right? But it means the plant absolutely requires another corpse flower to be blooming nearby at the exact same time. And with rampant deforestation destroying its habitat, there are only about 45 wild locations left in Sumatra. In 2018, it was officially listed as endangered. The neighbors are disappearing, and these plants are left blooming all alone. So humanity is stepping in. Scientists at the Bogor Botanic Gardens in Indonesia, along with botanical gardens all over the world, are performing what I like to call a botanical heist. They are stepping in to act as matchmakers. When one plant blooms, they carefully extract its pollen, freeze it in refrigerators, and then they wait, sometimes months, sometimes even years, for another plant to bloom so they can perform this really high-stakes hand pollination. And this is precision science. Before they even attempt to pollinate, researchers meticulously test the stored pollen. They soak it in an aniline blue dye and examine it under a microscope. Only the pollen grains that turn dark are highly fertile. The light, collapsed ones, totally useless. They have to ensure that only the most viable, fertile grains are used when a rare female flower finally opens its petals for that brief 24-hour window. But hey, the effort is paying off. Despite the incredible difficulty, the insanely precise timing required, and the constant threat of fungal rot destroying the plant, which, by the way, scientists actively fight off using essential oils from lemongrass and neem leaves, this targeted hand pollination over in Bogor resulted in an amazing 50% fruit set success rate. The stunning result of all this intense labor over 6 months is hundreds of bright red, fleshy, berry-like fruits clustered around the central stalk. In the wild, large birds like hornbills would eat these and disperse the seeds across the rainforest. But in cultivation, each of these berries contains the precious seeds needed to carefully grow a whole new generation of corpse flowers. It's how we're ensuring the species doesn't just vanish from the earth. This entire incredible journey leaves us with a pretty profound question about conservation. Can humanity successfully save a plant whose bizarre biology seems so heavily stacked against its own survival? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How far are we willing to go, and how much are we willing to invest to save a spectacular, foul-smelling giant that spends years hiding underground only to bloom for a single day? I think it's a true testament to the wonders of the natural world and to our dedication to keeping it alive. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I encourage you all to keep exploring and keep learning.